Thank you, Cindy, for this opportunity. And what an amazing opportunity we all have to come together and share some information that's meant to empower us and empower our health and empower others' health, because that's what this is all about. So I think it's really awesome that we all come together for these kind of things. And I think that what I'm going to share today is probably a little bit different from what you're going to hear from other people. I want to blow some minds. I don't know if I can do it in 15 minutes because I usually talk for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours at a minimum. But it comes from a good place. It comes from my heart, and this is what works for me, and this is what works for all our clients. We've worked with a lot of people here locally. We've got over 1,000 people that have been through our SHT program, and this is from the heart. So even though it may be a little bit different, just take what you can from it and move on. You know. All right. So how do I control the? Oh, here we go. The right arrow. All right. So the videos aren't working here. I was going to tell everyone, this is a video of me eating bacon, my first experience with bacon when I was a kid. And it was a habit that my parents gave to me that has stuck with me for a lifetime. I've never been able to get rid of my habit of eating bacon. And it was a lot funnier if you could have seen the video that went along with it. But for whatever reason, I transferred it from Mac and it didn't come over. So this was me back in 2006. And this was me at my heaviest and my most metabolically deranged. All right, and I can say that about myself. Doesn't sound like a nice term, but this is me, okay? This was my first checkup since being out of the military. So I'm an Army veteran. I'm a West Point grad. So yeah, thanks. I loved it. Had a great experience with it. And so I did everything that I thought was right for most of my life. You know, I ate low-fat, whole grains, avoided red meat, counted calories, portion control, ate every 2 or 3 hours to keep my metabolism stoked, which what sense does that really make to eat every 2 or 3 hours? To eat more often to burn more calories. Think about that logically. It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So, but anyway, I was doing everything that I thought was healthy, and I was doing what I would consider conventional wisdom's view of what we need to do to be healthy. And when I went in for my first checkup, I was 270 pounds, high blood pressure. I was on blood pressure meds. I was pre-diabetic, so I was on metformin. I took a statin for my lipid numbers. I took Claritin every day for allergies, Zantac every day for indigestion. And yeah, we can laugh at it right now, but you know what? That's what everyone that comes to see me is suffering from these days, right? All this stuff, it's all connected. And that was a big wake-up call for me because I thought I was doing everything right, and I obviously wasn't. And so that's what set me on my path to try to figure out what was actually healthy. And that's what landed me here, and that's what landed me in this position of trying to empower others. And I think we're doing a great job of it. So this is, here we go. This is me today, and today I am healthier than I've ever been in my entire life. I'm stronger and more conditioned than I was in my 20s. My health markers are better than they were in my 20s. My insulin sensitivity, my glucose sensitivity, my cholesterol numbers, which I don't really care about lipid numbers anymore, but my lipid numbers, according to modern medicine, they look pretty good. All my inflammatory markers, everything about me, my mental clarity, emotional stability, everything about me is better than it was when most people would consider you to be at your best in my early 20s. And so this idea that as we get older, it's the natural, irrevocable progression that we're going to constantly start to decline and get diagnosed with something, it's ludicrous, because you can always get better. No matter where you are, you can always get better and move in a better direction. And this is what we would consider superhuman symptoms. So we have a program called the Superhuman Transformation. This is superhuman symptoms, and this is just from feedback that we get from all the people that we worked with over the past 4 years. And on the left-hand side, you'll see physiological symptoms. On the right-hand side, more of the mental and emotional type symptoms. And these are all great things and great transformations. So I'm a local holistic nutritional therapist. I'm a life coach. I'm a master practitioner with neuro-linguistic programming. I'm a CrossFit addict. I'm a barefoot runner. I like to spend a lot of time outdoors and getting dirty and things like that. So today I'm going to tell you to do things that probably sound kind of crazy. I'm going to tell you to eat meat. I'm going to tell you to eat fat. I'm going to tell you to get outside and get some sun. I'm going to tell you to get dirty. I'm going to tell you to snort some things. And this is all good stuff for you, okay? A little bit different from what you might be used to. But our goal is to empower people with freedom. And this is true freedom that comes from understanding how to implement these foundations that I have listed up here. I'm going to try to touch on each one of these really briefly because I only have about 15 minutes. All right, so one of the big questions is, what is real food? Because there's a lot of conflicting information out there about what real food is. And I think we would all agree that real food is the solution versus processed food, but then within the realm of real food, the confusion is constant with all the different information that we get from all kinds of different sources. So this is a clear indication that we as a species cannot figure out what we're supposed to eat. 4,500 different diets in the United States alone. There's not a single animal on the planet that if you put it out in its natural habitat can't figure out what it's supposed to eat. But for being the most intelligent animal species, we can't figure out what we're supposed to eat. Now, why can't we figure out what we're supposed to eat? Say again? We have a lot of conveniences, and there's also a lot of information being put out by a lot of organizations that are making money off that information, right? So, one of the realizations that I had when I had that checkup and I had all those poor health markers was, if what you're doing isn't working, if you're still tired, can't lose weight, have other unresolved symptoms or issues, you have to consider the possibility, however unlikely, that some of what you think is healthy isn't. And that was the realization that I had back then. And that's what set me on this path of trying to figure everything out. So I started asking questions, and the questions went along the lines of this. Did we always have this kind of problem with food and health as a species throughout our entire existence, right? Were there things that we used to do that were good for us that we don't do now? And vice versa, are there things that we're doing now that aren't good for us that our bodies aren't used to? I had a very evolutionary approach to things. I loved Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was growing up. I wanted to be an archaeologist and loved dinosaurs and fossils and all that kind of stuff. So I took some evolutionary biology and anthropology courses, and it's pretty darn clear what humans ate before modernization, and it's not what we're told to eat today. All right? So this was my progression. I went from eating, I went from eating standard American diet crap food and transitioned to vegan vegetarianism because I felt like that was going to fix a lot of my health problems. And there's a lot that I agree with the vegan movement. So I think we share more in common than things that we disagree with. I'm a fan of animal meats and fats, but I mean, that's the only thing that we disagree on. Everything else, fresh, unprocessed food, humane treatment of animals, humane welfare of the planet. So anyway, went from there, developed my own, some additional health issues, developed some colitis at the end of my vegan stint, 18 months into it. And then I landed into some real food, kind of more modern way of looking at real food, like the paleo and primal movements. Who has not heard of the paleo movement in recent times? Somebody? Nobody? You haven't?
No, I haven't.
Okay, cool. All right. So Primal, Weston A. Price, these are all really good resources. And if we connect, I can share all this information with you. And so my health went to another level when I figured out all this information. Then I got into some alternative cancer therapy certifications, some more holistic certifications, and then found my way into some real food therapeutic methodologies. And that's what's this hybrid methodology that I put together. We call it Powered by Real Food. So the way that we look at food, someone mentioned earlier about vitality and life force, and I love that because that's absolutely true. If we eat something that has vitality and life force, we inherit that vitality and life force. Our focus is not calories, because if we can focus on foods that give your body the nutrients that it needs to function and contribute to form and structure, then calorie is almost irrelevant because those nutrients are going to all kinds of different purposes throughout the body. Calorie is a unit of energy, and if I'm looking at food like gasoline and that's all it is to me, then that would make sense, but that's not all food is to me. My body uses food for a lot of different things. We focus on nutrient synergy and food synergy, minimal toxins, and then we call it self-sufficiency, which is training the body how to make its own energy. And ideally, that would be training the body how to use fat for fuel, right? And we're not talking about ketogenic necessarily, although we do experiment with ketogenic, and we have some programs, some advanced programs where we help people get into that state. So, and the great thing that we have going for us is there's a lot of real food awareness now. So has anybody here not heard of GMOs? Okay. 4 years ago when I started doing talks here at Whole Foods and some other mind, body, spirit centers and some CrossFit gyms, no one knew what a GMO was. I had to do a whole presentation on GMOs. Now everybody knows what GMOs are. Everybody knows what organic is, and that's great. All right. I had another really good video that popped up on here. It was from the Good Morning America, and it was a discussion from their registered dietitian about healthy fats. So did y'all get this cover article from Time Magazine in 2014? Eat butter, why scientists label fat the enemy and why they were wrong? Right? We're butter fanatics. We love healthy fats. All right. So back in after the McGovern report in 1979, Time Magazine came out with a frowny face saying you need to limit your cholesterol consumption to 1 egg per day and things like that. And now here we are, 2014. Oops, like butter's okay to eat. Some of these healthy fats are okay to eat as long as they're not the processed and wrong toxic, highly processed kinds. I mean, we've been trying to do this whole low-fat, high carbohydrate deal for the past 40 or 50 years, and we're worse off than we've ever been in our existence. And that's the video. I wish we could play it. All right, so a really good book that I recommend reading is Death by Food Pyramid. It's a really good kind of bashing conventional wisdom kind of view thing, but I can send you some links to that. So I don't know if you are aware of the 2015 dietary guidelines. The U.S. government has withdrawn its recommended limits on dietary cholesterol. Did we all see that? Or a lot of us see that? So, and they're not saying, they still don't speak about cholesterol in a favorable way, but they've removed those restrictions, so there's some acknowledgement there about dietary cholesterol. I could talk about cholesterol all day long. Our body produces most of the cholesterol that it needs endogenously, and so the cholesterol that we eat has very little impact on our actual cholesterol levels because my body's going to do what it's going to do no matter what. So, and then holistic nutrition is like huge in mainstream circles, right? So I don't know if you've noticed, some of these professional sports teams and even Olympic athletes have been hiring nutritional therapists and holistic practitioners to help them put together nutrition plans. The Lakers have a nutritionist that's helping them, or recommending that they eat butter and bacon and bone broth to help replenish glycine, collagen, things that are necessary to repair joints and build joints and bones and cartilage and things like that inside the body. And then I'm sure most of us, who has not heard of Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis? Has anybody not heard of that? It's a great book. Dr. William Davis, Wheat Belly, I followed him since he first started his podcast years ago before he came out with his book. And so we're starting to see a lot of realizations about grains and maybe the deleterious effect of grains on some people. And we're not saying that's for everybody, but we're saying some people. And all right, so if we had to put together an ancestral way of looking at real food based on all these different methodologies, it would look something like this: healthy fat, or animal meats, healthy fats, nutrient-dense vegetables with a little bit of fruit, full-fat dairy products, what we would consider safe starches, which are things like sweet potatoes and yams, and maybe some ancestral tubers, and then depending on your beliefs and how you feel about these things and how you respond to them, maybe some grains and legumes thrown in there. So as a bonus piece of information, for anyone that connects with me, I have a little sign-in sheet at the back next to my table with the essential oils, or if you just take one of our cards and end up connecting with us online anywhere, it's this Empowered card here. We have a bunch of those on the back of the table. We'll send you our 5 food groups and a little bit of tips on how to structure your daily eating and some other tips on being superhuman, right? And we'll if we have time for questions at the end, then we can do some questions. So let's move on to essential oils, and we're going to skip the supplementation part, but I will talk a little bit about essential oils. Essential oils are everywhere. Like, we see them everywhere. We hear about it in the news. We see them at Target and Walmart and CVS and Walgreens now. Why do we see them everywhere? Because they work. But I would only recommend a couple of different companies because of their quality control measures. The reason that we love essential oils is they give us holistic plant-based alternatives to over-the-counter medications. Over-the-counter medications are necessary in some situations, but if you have something that's a little bit less toxic that you can try initially, and if it gives you some results, then that would be worth trying. Because our goal is trying to get people to be as healthy as possible and as non-toxic as possible. And so if we can find an alternative that's less toxic, then that would be something we want to give a shot. It also gives us holistic plant-based alternatives for home cleaning. So instead of using, all these different chemicals and disinfectants, then, in our home we have a bottle of white vinegar mixed with water and a little bit of purified essential oil, and, completely non-toxic and does a really good job at cleaning things. Immediate relief for physiological symptoms. So if I have a headache, instead of going immediately to a Tylenol, I go to peppermint or past tense or something and rub it on the back of my neck or my temples, and boom, I'm like the witch doctor in my office, because people will come running down from the end of the hallway for someone that has a migraine. They'll come in, I'll rub them down, and then all of a sudden, they feel better, and it's amazing. So we use essential oils for physiological symptoms, and then we also use essential oils for emotional wellness support, because if I can smell something that smells good to me and my body responds well to, it has an immediate impact on my emotional wellness. So we would say that real food is very foundational. It's a huge part of what we do, and then we can use essential oils and supplementation to help support our efforts with the real food. And what are essential oils? Well, first of all, essential oils are distillations from plants, and they are nature's defense mechanisms. All right, so if I can take advantage of some of those defense mechanisms, then maybe I can use those defense mechanisms to help me defend against pathogens, or maybe even kill pathogens like bacteria and fungus and certain parasites. It's also nature's communication system for plants and cells, which means those aromatic properties plants are communicating with each other and other animals. Well, I can also take advantage of those aromatic properties, and they have some beneficial effects inside my body. They're extracts from plants with constituents that are both aromatic and lipid-based. Lipid-based meaning fat-based, and if I apply it to my skin or take it internally, it has systemic benefits and it travels throughout my entire body. And they're 50 to 70 times more powerful than herbs, and I would say that they're not even comparable to herbs. Herbs have a completely different place and very beneficial, and they have different properties. But as an example, 1 drop of peppermint oil is equivalent to 28 cups of peppermint tea, right? So anyone here that has ever taken a drop of doTERRA's peppermint oil and taken it internally, you'll know like it's extremely potent, and I love it. It's my favorite oil. And the reason that they're effective is, number one, the aromatic properties directly affect the limbic system, which is a very primal part of our brain. And so when I smell something, that triggers a lot of different things inside my body. When applied topically or taken internally, some of the constituents are able to penetrate cell membranes because they are lipid-based, and our cell membranes are also lipid-based and fatty-based. That's why it's called a bilipid layer or a phospholipid layer. And they work at the cellular level to help protect cells. So there's a lot of things that are great about essential oils. You can get benefits from essential oils just through the aromatic properties and just diffusing or just taking the cap off of an oil and smelling it. I have some examples of a bunch of oils there in the bag, some emotional oils and some symptomatic oils. So you're welcome to take the caps off and experiment with those. Also, if you apply topically to a localized area, let's just say that I have a stomach issue or a digestive issue and I take the digestive recommendations, I can apply it to that area and get some immediate benefit, but then also it gets absorbed into my skin, and so I have what we call systemic benefits because it travels throughout my entire body. If you take some peppermint oil and rub it on the bottom of your feet, you can sit there with a timer and see how long it takes for you to taste it in your mouth, because that's what we're talking about from the systemic benefits. It's pretty cool. We do it in some of our classes. So. And peppermint will wake you up. So. And then you can take some of them internally. Now, I would not take a CVS or a Walmart or a Target essential oil and take it internally because they're not certified pure and therapeutic grade. What we love about some of the companies that we recommend, our favorite is doTERRA, but there's a couple other really reputable companies out there that offer really high quality essential oils. They have a model they call co-impact sourcing, and they basically source their oils throughout the world in the places those plants grow the best, and therefore they're getting a more potent oil, and they're also helping to develop some of these underdeveloped countries and give them some income and some business practices. And this is just a graph showing all the different oils and all the different parts of the world that they come from. So the oils from companies like doTERRA are completely different from what you'd find in Walmart or Target or one of these pharmacies. All right, so certified pure therapeutic grade is their own certification, because if they're getting some essential oil from another country that doesn't recognize the USDA organic label, they had to come up with their own label, but their testing and their testing measures are just beyond belief. I've attended 2 doTERRA conventions right now, and the science that comes out behind this stuff is incredible. All right, so we recommend when tapping into essential oils that you get oils to support your symptoms, and I have a family essentials kit back there, which is a really great starter kit for most people. Just a recommendation. You can take the caps off and play with some of those oils. I wouldn't do that with the oregano, though. It can be really, really hot. And then oils to support your emotions. They have an emotional aromatherapy kit, and I have an example of that back there, but there's also some other blends that we recommend that you start with, maybe a little bit more cost effective. And then we also have some recommendations for home cleaning. So I have a handout back there that's stapled together, and it's supporting your holistic lifestyle naturally with some home cleaning methods. So it's a free take-home, and it's got a lot of great information in it. So I'd grab one of those if you could. I had no idea how many people to expect today. I have about maybe 15 back there. If you're curious about whether essential oils really work, go into PubMed and just search for essential oils or search for specific essential oils. And you will see all kinds of different research being done on essential oils. They're plant-based, right? The pharmaceutical industry, and we need drugs, we need them for certain specific situations, but they're trying to mimic a lot of nature. And if you go in here and you see some of the research being done, it's incredible. Some of this is observational epidemiological studies, but some of it is actually controlled studies where they're actually putting people in controlled settings and doing all kinds of neat stuff. So if you have any interest in looking into that stuff, then we'd say, search in PubMed and you see a lot of confirmation there. The best benefits is supporting your doctors and your medical team's efforts in supporting your symptoms and your emotional state and things like that. All right? All right, so next thing we want to talk about real quick is circadian rhythms. Has anybody not heard of circadian rhythms before? I knew I'd get a few people that didn't know that. Okay, cool. So setting circadian rhythms is aligning your biological rhythms with the rising and setting of the sun and the Earth's biological rhythms, right? So the rising and setting of the sun happens every day. If it didn't, we'd be in trouble, right? So every animal, every cell, every living organism on the planet is in sync with this rising and setting of the sun, right? Except for humans. Why are humans not in sync with the rising and setting of the sun? Because we have technology, right? We have lights, we have computers, we have cell phones and all this other stuff, right? Our ancestors were in sync, right? So our goal should be to get back in sync because this dictates a lot of our hormonal patterns and sleep patterns and things like that. I think I just missed a slide. Where are we at? Well, I had a graph here. And on that graph, it basically showed that, maybe it'll pop up here in a second. So my cortisol levels, ideally, first thing in the morning are going to be at their highest. And this is synonymous with my body trying to create energy, right? The sun comes up and my cortisol levels are spiked. And then as the day goes on and the sun sets, my cortisol levels start to taper off. And that's synonymous with my body starting to secrete melatonin. And melatonin, as we've all probably heard, helps us cycle through our deeper phases of recuperation. So in order for my body to understand when to secrete cortisol and when to taper that off and when to secrete melatonin, I have to be in sync with the rising and setting of the sun or these circadian rhythms. And the biggest driver for the syncing of that is going to be light exposure. Getting the right amount of light during the daytime and getting minimal light stimulus at night. So during the day, we recommend people get outside, get outdoors. You don't have to do sunbathing. You can just be under the shade of a tree or under an awning and get the presence of that brightness. And that's going to help set your circadian rhythms. We recommend about 30 minutes cumulative every day to help get that gravitational pull for circadian rhythms. And then in the evening, make sure that you're, especially when you go to bed, that you're not sitting on your cell phone in your bed or watching TV or watching Terminator or some huge war movie or something where you have all these explosions and flashes and things, because that light confuses your body and makes your body think that it's a different time of day than it is. And it won't secrete melatonin to the degree that it needs to, which is why a lot of us have problems sleeping at night. So sun is actually very good. We've co-evolved with the sun for our entire existence. The sun is not bad for you. Sitting out and getting a third-degree sunburn 5 times a year is bad for you, trying to get a tan. But natural sun exposure on a daily basis, out walking and playing and hiking and things like that, that's what we were meant to do. And that helps set your circadian rhythms. All right. So grounding and being outdoors, this is my son Conan. Like Conan the Barbarian, he's a Dutch Shepherd, and I freaking love this guy. So I don't know if any of us have heard of the benefits of being in contact with the earth. It's known as grounding or earthing. It has measurable physiological benefits. You can also go into PubMed and research some of this stuff. And oh, thank you so much, 2-minute warning. All right. And research some of this stuff. And I thought you were holding up a note, something else. All right. And so being in touch with the earth has measurable physiological benefits because we start to exchange certain things with the earth, certain negative ions and electrons, and that's beneficial for our body in a lot of different ways. And it's kind of difficult to explain, but just to understand, having this evolutionary approach to things, you know, in the past, our ancestors lived outside. Today, you know, we have rubber shoes, we have insulated homes, we walk out the house in our rubber shoes, we get into a car that has rubber tires, and we drive somewhere, we go into a building that has insulated. We never touch the earth, we never touch trees, we never do any of that kind of stuff anymore, and it's actually really beneficial and healthy for us. All right, and being outdoors has its own benefits. You know, fresh air, getting away from electromagnetic pollution and light pollution and all those different things. Like, it's extremely healthy for us. And you ever notice how when you go on hikes and you're outdoors and you're at the beach, like you just feel a little bit different? It's good for you in a lot of different levels, right? I had some people talk about mindfulness and meditation. We are huge in mindfulness and meditation. We teach meditation with our private clients or with our progressions. Meditation has profound benefits, and for a lot of people, I think they make it very complicated and confusing. And it's very, very simple and elegant. We can help you understand how to do that. All right, and I think that is covering just about everything. We are looking for volunteers to work with on a cancer patient status. So we're very passionate about the way that we teach people how to eat, and most of us understand in the holistic realm that cancer can be a very metabolic-driven disease, a very glucose-dependent disease, and if we can train the body how to use fat for fuel, we start to see reduction in a lot of symptoms. This helps with standard medical treatment. It helps their efforts, and so if you know anybody that would like that kind of help, please reach out to us because we love doing what we do. We have some information back there on the table, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.